Hi, good morning and good afternoon to everyone joining this webinar with Cambium Networks. This is Sakid Ahmed, and today's webinar will touch on our latest and greatest product we just shipped, the ePMP 3000. I'm going to go through various aspects of the 3000 product, highlight some of the features and status of the overall product, and then talk a bit about the roadmap. We have quite a few people on the webinar itself. My actual presentation will take about 20 minutes or so. And as always, the Q&A is probably the most exciting part. So line up your questions, and as they come in through the Q&A panel, I will repeat the questions and try my best to answer at today's session. At the completion of the webinar, this recording will be posted on our community forum. And it will be advertised through Cambium channel. So if you don't get a chance to stay through the end of the webinar, feel free to come back and check on the community. And also, as always, we're always taking questions. So if there's things you don't get to ask here, feel free to visit us at community.cambiumnetworks.com. So with that, let me get started and give a little bit of a background as well. You kind of see the first slide talking about ePMP 3000 Generation 3, answering the need for speed. I'm suspecting we probably have quite a few existing ePMP customers on this webinar, but there's a possibility there's some customers that are new to Cambium. So for the sake of them, I just want to give a little preview of how we came to this Generation 3 product. As most of you are familiar, ePMP started off as the first generation product with ePMP 1000. And then in that product, we introduced GPS sync with a heavy emphasis on improving the self-interference situation, as well as offering frequency reuse. And ePMP started off as a very affordable platform that, unlike any of its peers in the market, offered frequency reuse. So you're able to do back-to-back APs and do GPS sync. Of course, along with the foundation of GPS sync, you needed things like a TDD frame structure, transmit power control, front-to-back ratio of antennas, numerous other things that we talked about all the way back 4 years ago, 5 years ago maybe. And that was our Generation 1. As we progressed, we looked at solving the problem of external interference. So this is where the Generation 2 ePMP 2000 platform was born. And to go back a little bit on history, this is a platform that took everything that we had on ePMP 1000 around GPS synchronization, reducing self-interference, added filtering in the receive and transmit to improve co-channel interference scenarios, towers where you have competitors or other people putting up big dishes. Being able to reject that noise was added in the dynamic filtering feature on the ePMP 2000. Along with that, we added the beam steering antenna for the Uplink. And that was the whole decision to do Uplink beam steering was driven by the fact that most of the interference, or at least in most cases, a congested tower is hearing a lot of noise from a lot of devices that might not even belong to your own network. So therefore, creating a beam steering antenna on the Uplink was key. So Generation 1, self-interference. Generation 2, self-interference plus external interference. Needless to say, the question became all about performance and higher throughput. Thus, the Generation 3 product, and which became the ePMP 3000. A bit more context on this, as most of you are familiar that in order to get what I would call this affordable platform with quality, we leverage the 802.11.x standard body, or IEEE's 802.11 specs. So 11N, which was a big jump from ABG with introduction of MU-MIMO, eventually went to 11AC. But in 11AC, you had two flavors, and that's partly because there were so many things added in the 11AC spec that most chip vendors in the ecosystem that makes your home routers and enterprise Wi-Fi's could not pack all those features into the single release of a chipset. Thus, the concept of a Wave 1 and Wave 2 was introduced. In wave one, which you see a lot of products out there, you'll see 80 megahertz channel bandwidth support in higher modulation, such as 256 QAM. Cambium Networks, we purposely avoided creating a product in wave one because our core competency in a point-to-multipoint system tells us that the higher modulations or really wide channel bandwidths are not the most practical things for a point-to-multipoint network. So we were banking on the fact that wave two provided multi-user MIMO. And this single-handedly is a big contributor for the capacity increase that we'll talk about in 3000. So, but it's a context and a little background that 11AC has wave one and wave two. There's a lot of products out there that are labeled as Gen 2 or Gen 3 or Gen 5, whatnot. But in reality, they're essentially a wave one product with wide channels and higher modulations. ePMP 3000 is the first product optimized for multi-user MIMO in an outdoor environment. So Generation 3 brings in everything we had in Generation 1 with self-interference. It has a dynamic filter for external noise rejection. It has the same beam steering antenna capability as the 2000, which goes in the bottom of this AP. But the other things that it has is this, as you can see from the picture, 4 connectors on the top of the AP. That's essentially a 4 transmit, 4 receive chain radio. Bottom right-hand corner, you see a sector antenna, which is a 4x4 multi-user MIMO antenna. And what you see there are 2 overlapping 90-degree sectors. And this is where the fundamental trick lies, that this allows us to be able to do MIMO to 2 subscribers at any given time. Needless to say that 256 QAM modulation, such as in 20 megahertz, getting it at 256 QAM 5.6 is present. The 80 megahertz channel, higher packets per second, lots of other things are packed in there. And I'll get into my next slide to cover a little bit more on that. This slide is important, but it really is a positioning and a comparison that if you look at what you have today on an ePMP 1000, 2000, very quickly, by putting a 3000 with the corresponding subscribers, you're able to get multi-user MIMO and doubling your sector throughput. If you end up getting higher modulations, such as 256 QAM, you could increase that another factor. And then, of course, if you can double your channel and go from 20 to or 40 to 80 megahertz, you get a substantial. But you'll also notice that on the 3000 side, I've also added things like most likely, likely, and least likely, because, again, you know, getting 80 megahertz in a PMP environment is, I would almost discourage you to do that because you're only going to create more noise in your environment. So MU-MIMO, and in some cases, getting the higher modulation becomes a key value proposition at the highest level. What you see in this slide is essentially the 3000 AP and a couple of Force 300-25, we'll call it F25 for now. The foundation here is that in a legacy situation, you're really just talking to 1 subscriber at any given time. And here you are able to pick out a couple of subscribers based on traffic profile, based on things like channel condition, sounding, groupability. We're able to do 2 subscriber transmission at the same time. So you fundamentally, you have the potential to double the sector capacity. You also have the filtering that I mentioned, the beam steering, secondary SFP port for data. The product also has a dedicated chip on there that's doing real-time spectrum analyzer. And this is the big news, that you no longer have to use Java clients and change the radio's mode of operation to run spectrum analyzer. You're actually able to see the spectrum right on the radio while it's still doing all of its other tasks. On top of spectrum analyzer, if you go to the monitor or tools page, right below spectrum analyzer, you'll also see a tool that will show you the MAC addresses and RSSI levels of some of the interferers across the whole channel. So think of it as the e-detect on steroids. So there's all sorts of things beyond just a multi-user MIMO that as you get the product, as you play with it, as you start deploying it, you'll get an idea. Now, important topic on the bottom right-hand side, where we're talking about 3 different scenarios. Scenario number 1, and this is a topic on its own, is the concept of compatibility. If the 3000 AP happens to be speaking to a Force 200, Force 180, Force 190, as in what I would call the legacy product. In that case, those subscribers are not sending any information back. Therefore, you just operate as is. You're really not getting any type of multi-user MIMO benefit. However, there is a mode of operation, and you'll see it in the GUI where it says 4x2 is what we call a single user beamforming mode. The sector antenna that I showed earlier, in this scenario, even if you're not doing multi-user MIMO, one of those subscribers could be benefiting from beamforming. And this is downlink beamforming, where essentially the two 90-degree sectors are formed towards the same subscriber, giving you an additional 3 dBi gain in the downlink. And last but not least is the simultaneous beamforming or simultaneous MU-MIMO transmission, where you're now phase shifting away from the two subscribers, canceling each other out, being able to transmit at the same time without interfering. I see some questions are popping up already, but we'll wait till near the end. A few other things I want to highlight that I probably should go ahead and update in the slides is the access point has 4 receivers. So now in the uplink, you can also gain some benefit, up to 3 dB gain improvement because of maximum ratio combining, or MRC, which because of the 4 receive paths, the subscribers that are talking back, regardless whether they're an 11AC subscriber, 11N subscriber, or for that matter, an elevated 11N subscriber will benefit in the uplink. And that's an important point to note as well because of the 4 receive paths. On the next slide, a little bit more about how does it work. This is actually a deployment scenario with 6 subscribers on a 90-degree sector. And what you see are things like a absolute azimuth value and some calculated values that we come up with. This is all very much transparent to you as the end user running your network. You won't see any of this. But fundamentally, the message that I wanted to get across is with just 6 subscribers here, and the next slide kind of shows that, with just 6 subscribers there, you're able to do some grouping, and the green subscribers, essentially customer number 5, is able to group and do MU-MIMO with 4, 2, and 1. So it's a simple requirement that if you happen to have a 90-degree sector and you're able to put out some subscribers out there, you're able to leverage the MU-MIMO relatively easily. There is no significant density requirement. There's no other requirements other than, hey, load up the sector. If there's a 10 to 30 degree azimuth delta or 50 to 70 degree, then you are going to be able to group them. Having said that, in previous webinars, this was a question. Understand this MU-MIMO only happens with 11AC based subscribers. So the Force 300 series of subscribers, which are capable of doing the sounding back, are the only ones that will support the multi-user MIMO. As well, you have to have traffic. So you may be able to do link tests and things like that to see that you're getting the MU-MIMO benefit, and the link test will let you do that. It will let you pick a subscriber, and it will, in the drop-down menu, it will show you the remaining subscribers that are in the remaining groupable subscribers. You can pick them, and you can do a link test with 2 subscribers at the same time. All that's great, but ultimately your biggest measure of success for this product is when you place the AP or you deploy a greenfield network, you want to look at your overall sector throughput consumption. If that goes up, you start characterizing end user subscribers and you start planning out a network and saying, okay, I'm going to offer a 100 megabit plan over here. I'm getting high modulation over here. My sector capacity has increased. And with that, on that same sector that I showed the picture of, this is some data in terms of the throughput increase. So what you'll see here is on the top part of the table, those MAC addresses represent different customers. And you do some single radio link tests, and you do a trial 1, trial 2. It's a 75-25, 20 megahertz channel. And your average downlink, let's just say, is 93 meg and 26 meg in the uplink. In the table below, what you see is I'm taking customer 5, and I'm able to group up customer 4, 2, and 1. So 5 and 4 a group together, I run a simultaneous links test. Now my overall AP at a 20 megahertz channel went to almost 200 meg if I add up my downlink plus uplink. And the next one, you went to 179 plus 19. So it's a distribution up to doubling. In this case, it's not exactly doubling, but it's a significant improvement. And as you see on the right-hand side, the MCS are fluctuating a little bit between MCS 8, MCS 9. And as we tune our rate adapt algorithm and fine-tune this stuff, we're going to squeeze out even more and get closer and closer to the doubling scenario. Moving ahead, the compatibility-wise, this is a very hot topic. The best way to describe compatibility is that we call forwards compatibility a scenario where the ePMP 2000 is upgraded to a new software, and it can now talk to the Force 300 base subscribers. That's forwards compatibility. And the backwards compatibility is when an ePMP 3000 speaks to the legacy Force 180, 190 type subscriber. The end game here is that everything talks to everything. And there's a lot of pent-up demand. When is backwards compatibility coming? The question is going to come soon here, I'm sure, in the Q&A. We have it working. We're doing limited contained trials. The concern from our side is that we have some very large networks of ePMP, and the moment you put an ePMP 3000, your 4x4 sector antenna has it's no longer a 90/120, it's a 90-degree sector. So you have to do some planning, make sure that if you happen to have 60 subscribers in your AP, that all 60 are covered by the new antenna, and that there's no stability issues or no customer performance issues as you upgrade. So we are trying to do as much testing under the hood with working with some select customers of ours to make sure that the backwards compatibility is really cooked before we release it. But we're just not months away, but maybe 4 to 6 weeks away from releasing a full-fledged backwards compatibility. I should also highlight that what you'll see at the end when you go to a customer support site at Cambium and you're about to download software images, you'll download the AC files. Those are .img image files. That will go on your 3000 Force 300 base subscribers. But when you upgrade your legacy stuff, you're going to use the tar.gz format. So that's a different package, which is not available today to do backwards compatibility because we're controlling the release of that. And needless to say, for Elevate, you'll have another image if it's a brand new unit that's about to get bumped up. Okay, a little bit on release planning. 4.3 is the release that all units ship with. It's actually an official release and not an RC candidate. It's 20 megahertz support. It's got the compatibility and MU-MIMO support. 4.3.1 is key. It's a release candidate that's on our beta site that I welcome you to download and try. It's already got improvements on 4.3, stability fixes, some improvements on performance. Those of you that have been with the ePMP journey in the last 3-4 years, you do realize that we send a lot of software releases, but we respond fast. So we're just constantly working on improving things, tweaking things, and as field deployments go out, we're learning things. And MU-MIMO is only going to get better and better. Rated app's going to get better and better. But there's some features planned as well: quality of service, idea of supporting multiple sectors, and not just a 4x4 sector, but horn antennas, additional uplink downlink ratio support, et cetera, et cetera. On the hardware front, the top 2 subscribers are what we have today. We're very excited about a 2x2 11AC solution with and without GPS. The without GPS variant would be used with third-party antennas for as a high gain subscriber. The one with GPS has a very strong play as what I would call a low density micro pop scenario. You can just pop it down with either omnis from third parties, or the way the housing was designed was to work from day one with a twist port adapter and horn antennas from RF Elements. And we're working closely with them to make sure this compatibility is there, but that product has nice play. The bottom row is, the left-hand side is a 20 dBi panel antenna, which may or may not be a big product for the North America market. If you're going to go rural long distance, you might as well go a dish product. Then a 13 dBi small form factor product that may or may not also have a play, but it's very short distance, potentially for a video surveillance backhauling type scenario on a street pole. Bottom right is a tiny picture of what I call a multi-user MIMO horn. And the idea behind here is to take the benefits of a horn antenna design and being able to do MU-MIMO with two of them next to each other with some calculations on the bore site separation and etc. It's a prototype that we tested, and this will be productized. The key message is this is not a long distance play. This is not going to give you, a 5 kilometer range. It's an 11 dBi type product, 60 and 90 degree. But the vision we have is if you're in a dense environment, semi-rural, semi-urban place where you want to be below tree line or below public buildings, and you want to just light up a small 60-degree sector but still want to benefit from MU-MIMO, you pop one of these guys in. So we feel that with 3000 in the portfolio, we have a good story in terms of something for every use case. And that's sort of the plan from the hardware software perspective. You can go and download the 4.3.1 release on the beta side. You can reach out to me if you would like to try the backwards forwards compatibility. But again, encourage you to do that in a contained manner, baseline things before you put it out commercially, or wait for us to send it out commercially in about 4 to 6 weeks. And with that, I will conclude the presentation and move ahead to questions and comments. We still have about 103 people online. And let's see if I can figure out how to get to the question tab. And here we are. All right. So where the fun begins. And I will have the questions. Okay. Right away, when will the interoperability firmware will be ready for legacy equipment? I think I answered that a few different times, that it's in limited quantity available now for customers who are wanting to try it in a beta mode, but we're still looking at 4 to 6 weeks before that is out. 3000 AP in 3.6, not planned. We have a 450 product in 3.6, as well as our 450M. That's the product we're leading with, so we do not have a roadmap for that. ePMP 3000 Force 300 supporting radius security features. This was definitely in our ePMP 1000, 2000, and I need to check if it's available today on radius. Noel, I can come back to you from your email registration and answer that question. But I need to check. I believe it's already there. Is MU-MIMO supported in the legacy product? And no, MU-MIMO is not supported in the legacy product, because one of the foundations is that the 11AC subscribers need to provide sounding information back so we can group them together. And there's a hey from Atlanta. Well, hey back to you from Atlanta. What is the power consumption on the PoE? And the PoE is similar to, the PoE is not similar to the, sorry, take that back. The power consumption is approximately 14, 15 watts. I would ask you to just download the spec sheet from our website to get the exact number. I don't remember off the top of my head. But the PoE is similar to an ePMP 2000, so it's an 802.11, 802.3 AT 25 watt power supply. Presentation after the webinar. What we will do there is we will publish this on our community, and from there you guys can look at it and download. Next question was, when using the ePMP 3000, when using the MU-MIMO ePMP 3000 antenna, if there is a mix-up of radio to antenna RF ports, does it have any effects on transmission? Yes, it will. have impacts. We did label everything. We need the horizontal, vertical, 1, 2, or 0, 1, 2, 3 to go to the corresponding ports on the antenna. And I think we got it right first time around in terms of labeling it. So yes, we do want that to be accurate. Okay, so that was pretty much the last question. I suspect that the material here was a bit similar to some of the other presentations I've done, but product is out there. It's getting into people's hands. We encourage you to reach out to us if you have positive or negative experience. We'll work with you. We're working on a lot of things. We respond fast. And I also will welcome customers to do their own webinar with Cambium. I would love that opportunity for you guys to come and join us and present your story of ePMP 3000. And as I'm talking, more questions are coming up. So a question was, so it means that we have to replace all Force 200 180 to be compatible with 3000. No, you do not have to replace your Force 200 180. The whole backwards compatibility means you're able to have 180-200 talk to the 3000, but you will not get multi-user MIMO when the 3000 is talking to the 180-200. The backwards compatibility gives you a migration opportunity, so you don't have to do it, or you're not forced to do it, but you can do it as needed. And as I mentioned a few other things, even with the Force 200 180 talking to the 3000, you will get some benefits in the uplink. And I didn't touch on this earlier, but there are some other under the hood things that could give you some benefits in the downlink as well. But you will not see the headline differentiation of multi-user MIMO if your subscribers are still on Force 200 180. If one of the MIMO ports is failing, is there any parameter to monitor this scenario? That is a great question. I don't know the answer to that, Noel, but I will take that back up because I think that's a scenario where you may have a bad port or a bad cable, and you want to understand that you have that, so you know how to act on that. That's a great input. Okay, next question. I want to make that note. How do we get firmware for force compatibility? IM me or personal message me on the community asking for that, and I'll respond to you. You can find me in the community as Sakid Ahmed, or you can email me at sakid.ahmed@cambiumnetworks.com. Will Elevate move forward to allow ePMP 3000 to communicate with MU-MIMO CPEs from other manufacturers? Oh boy, that's a tough question, David. Right now, no. So a couple of things. When you refer to MU-MIMO CPEs from other manufacturers, I don't know of, I guess, a whole lot of MU-MIMO CPEs in the market. Any of the CPEs that are the Gen 2 or AC Wave 1 don't have the sounding capability. So you can't really do MU-MIMO with the CPEs that are all Wave 1 based. You need the Wave 2 CPE. And Wave 2 CPEs, there's only one other vendor that offers it in the micropop type scenario, but that implementation may be very different, and we have no plans to support that. Gregory, long time. You had a question about what is the max number of CPs per AP. The initial plan is still stick to the 120, but there's really a software limit. We may try to up it, but it really depends on what kind of packages you guys want to offer. But right now it's 120. Okay, here's a question about what makes the 3000 sector antenna MU-MIMO and beamforming? So it's a combination of things. It's not just a sector antenna. Sector antenna is a passive antenna. So the algorithm and the sounding and all of that is happening in software and leveraging some of the things in the chipset. What the MU-MIMO antenna does is, the two antenna elements, the overlapping 90-degree sectors, essentially allows us the most optimum way of trying to group subscribers within a 90-degree sector. And we're doing some phase shifting between the two subscribers that we talk to, and that's what we're using on those two 90-degree sectors. And I think this question probably goes back to questions about using other antennas and being able to do MU-MIMO. And that's something we're looking at in terms of a roadmap, but not coming out with on day one. There was a question about 120 subs at what speed. Not a good question, actually, Justin. Sorry, but you can't, as a vendor, I'll never tell you what speeds you're going to get with 120 subscribers, because naturally you'll have to think about everything from what are the distances of your subscribers, what is the interference levels, what is the RSSI, what MCS are you in. All of those factors play a role. And will you have every subscriber requiring throughput at the same time? What is your busy hour loading rate? All of that comes into play if you want to know, what type of subscribers. Now, for us, we'll tell you that if all 120 subs were absolutely at the highest modulation, MCS 9, great conditions, not a lot of retransmissions, well, yeah, you're going to get about 250 meg in a 20 meg channel. Is it possible to achieve MU-MIMO in a mixed environment with both 180, 200, and 325? Yes, you will get MU-MIMO in that mixed environment to the 300 series subscribers. You will not get MU-MIMO on the legacy stuff. Question, is the performance can be impacted when legacy product is being connected to the 3000 AP? No. Today, if you connect legacy products as well as the new products, we're not seeing or expecting any performance impact. Okay, what is the total throughput of the ePMP 3000? Lots of ways to answer the question. If you're doing 80 megahertz, highest modulation, MU-MIMO to everything, you can be as high as 1.2 gig. But that's really a spec sheet thing, right? You're not going to get 80 megahertz and best modulation. So I would tell you that in 20 megahertz, 200 plus megabits, 40 megahertz, you can get 400 plus megabits, but really depends on your use case. Can the beamforming antenna from ePMP 2000 AP be used on 3000? I will rephrase that. Call it the beam steering antenna. So the answer is the beam steering antenna from the ePMP 2000 can be used on the 3000. I'm going to skip the next question because it's similar to the earlier question. Will the ePMP 2000 support the front to back feature? I believe this is the, for GPS sync, we have a frequency A, frequency B situation, and yes, that is going to be supported in 3000 as well. The next question was, would be an AC Elevate product? No, there is no plans to do an AC Elevate product at this time. Okay, lots of good questions, and I did answer very quickly, and I hope everybody was able to listen to the answers. One last question came in is, how many SMs can be connected to an AP without degrading the throughput? Another tricky question. I'll tell you guys something. I have a customer in Argentina with 120 SMs connected to an AP. It really, really boils down to what are you trying to achieve. If somebody's offering 120 SMs all connected at the same time, if every SM was active at the same time, and then obviously you take your total capacity that you're getting based on the modulation and signal level, you divide by 120. But if you go to another scenario in a North America market with high bandwidth packages, in an ePMP 2000, some customers will offer 40 subscribers, 50 subscribers before they say, you know what, I'm not going to add any more. So it really depends on the packages you offer. It really depends on if you have enterprise customers that are super latency sensitive. But long story short, with TCP type traffic, you can push the limits quite a bit in residential type markets. Question about CN Maestro. CN Maestro is not there today, but it's imminent any day now. You'll get that answer on our forum. We'll post that. QoS is on the roadmap. It's a Q1 delivery. We'll have similar QoS as we had on ePMP 2000. And can ePMP 2000 support more than 120 SMs? We're not planning that right now, but if that is a requirement that is made to us and you feel that you can use that scenario, then we can look into supporting that. Okay, I am going to wrap up the Q&A on that last question. Lots of good questions. I hope everybody found this information helpful. Again, if anything is not answered there, feel free to post on the forum and we'll respond. Once again, get the product in your hands, start doing some testing, and then give us feedback, right? And work with us. You know, we're a company that's very accessible. Myself, my team, our sales team, just hit us with emails and questions, and we'll do more webinars. More than welcome our customers to come and talk as well. And with that, thank you very much, and everyone have a great day. Bye-bye.